This video is sponsored by the personalized soundscape app, Endl. The first 100 people to click the link in the description will receive 1 free week of audio experiences. Armand was just 14 when he first became interested in mind uploading. The year was 2060, and up until this point, the idea had mostly been exclusive to science fiction and futurist speculation. But now, entering the second half of the 21st century, with quantum computing becoming commonplace, scanning technology becoming high enough resolution, and with massive progress being made in humanity's understanding of the brain's entire system of interactions and influences, the prospect of mapping a person's brain, digitizing a replica, and uploading it to the cloud was seemingly, at least in theory, on the horizon. If achieved, this technology would potentially allow human minds to live on indefinitely. Armand spent much of his free time in early adolescence reading and learning about this technology. Without even really being conscious of it, around the same time, he also started developing a deep-seated anxiety about time itself, how for him and everyone he knew, it would sooner than later come to an end. The more this reality set in, the more it unsettled him, the more he resisted it, the more he lived in a fear-fueled denial of it. His consciousness, capable of thinking and creating and loving with grand gesture, only aware of what it meant to exist and wired to cling to it, could not conceive of the prospect of it eventually not existing forever. And so, Armand embarked on his immortality project. In early adulthood, Armand would go to school and begin a career as a computer scientist and engineer, his primary interest being in streamlining quantum computing and quantum optimization algorithms. During this time, Armand would begin living completely differently. Realizing more and more that in order to achieve his desire of living forever, he would need to survive long enough for the possibility of the technology to become a reality. At the time, it was believed that mind-uploading technology could potentially become testable on human brains in somewhere around 30 to 40 years, and likely available as an option to the general public in around 40 to 60. And so, Armand would begin leaving his youthful haphazardness behind and move more into a strategic, careful, conservative lifestyle. Initially, this was made manifest mostly through a hyper-awareness of perfect health habits, exercising twice a day, curating a supplement regimen, and eating a perfectly clean, optimally balanced diet. However, as Armand aged further into his later 20s, in an attempt to reduce as much risk as he could, he began isolating himself more and more from the world. He began turning down invitations and opportunities to go places and do things, concerts, parties, events, vacations, and so on. If he wanted to live forever, he realized he would have to be disciplined. He would have to make sacrifices. Throughout this time, Armand made sure to keep a close eye on the companies leading the path in the mind uploading space, doing plenty of research and analysis based on his growing understanding. Although these companies were, of course, completely secretive about their progress, Armand consistently heard promising things from within the industry and from industry experts, and a large number of people around the world were living like Armand for the same reason. And so, his desire and efforts continued to burn. As more time would pass, Armand saw his friends and family less and less, only really seeing them on rare circumstances or in occasional VR chats. By his 30s, he lost contact with most of them after moving into a bunker shelter property in a small, isolated community several thousand miles away in the countryside. He loved the city, but he realized he had to live somewhere safer and more conservative. He would essentially remain here, contained inside his shelter, for the rest of his life, only really keeping in contact with his parents, who would, in a short time, pass away of old age. Armand would primarily focus on his work, which was now almost exclusively done remotely. He would have everything he needed delivered to him and only go out on rare occasions when necessary. As he continued to follow and become more entrenched in the quantum computing, AI, and mind uploading industry, the tech appeared to only be getting better and better, closer and closer. By this point, more and more people were living in careful preservation of themselves, awaiting the technology's almost certain release. It appeared to be just a matter of time before mind uploading was a real option, and Armand believed with all his conviction and knowledge that it was inevitable. Fueled by this, Armand would essentially sacrifice his social life, his love life, his family life, and arguably his life in general. He continued to defer his happiness and experience to later. He believed he would live forever, and so he lived as if he would. In the year 2133, when Armand was 87 years old, his lifelong desire finally came into view. For the first time, one of the companies pursuing the mind-uploading space, known as Samsara, revealed the release date of the first ever publicly available, government-sanctioned mind-uploading technology. Very little information had been shared up until this point, as all companies kept the specifics of their technology under strict NDAs. But now, the technology was set to be introduced and released just following a product introduction event scheduled on January 1st, 2134. Upon hearing the news, Armand was overwhelmed with anticipation and excitement. On January 1st, he attended the event virtually, along with a crowd of hundreds of thousands of people. The CEO of Samsara stood on the stage and said, "Tombstones, ashes in urns, diamonds, pictures, videos, belongings, and memories. For centuries, these things have been entrenched into human society as ways of remembering and keeping our loved ones with us after they're gone. But what if I told you you could actually keep a version of them with you? What if I told you that friends and family members can still feel like their loved ones are here with them after they're gone? With Samsara mind uploading technology, this is now a reality. With absolute precision and accuracy, we can scan, map, and upload hyper-realistic copies of any human brain and then place it into any avatar, which can then be engaged and interacted with through all major VR and AR applications, just as if it were a real person still here. Of course, like with all new revolutionary technologies, there are some unexpected limitations. All testing indicated that all test participants did not recognize the continuation of a consistent selfhood. Upon upload, the same sense of self appears to be lost. And so the user will not recognize themselves as themselves anymore, because they won't be. It is not obvious why. There appears to be something missing, and it appears impossible to compute or find. However, the avatar will still be reminiscent with utmost accuracy of the original versions of their human. A true miracle of computer science. As the CEO continued to speak, Armand realized what was happening. The CEO's voice and everything around him fell out of focus as he became numb. His hope, what he had waited and sacrificed his whole life for, wasn't what he believed it would be. He had held out in hopes that once he uploaded his mind, life would finally be worth living. And now that he was going to be able to do so, he wasn't even going to be there to enjoy it. Armand felt his entire life drop out of him. He felt like a carcass of could have been. Years would go by. Armand was 94 years old. He found himself lying on his deathbed in a hospice care facility. As the completionist he was, and for no other reason than why not, he preemptively opted in and qualified for the Samsara mind uploading service, which ended up being the best of any company of the time. Armand was asked what he would like his avatar to look like and other questions pertaining to its customization. He signed and filled out all the necessary consent and waiver forms, and when the time was right, his brain was scanned, mapped, modeled, digitized, and it began uploading into the cloud. An upload bar initiated on a computer screen that sat next to him in his room. Over the span of the following weeks, the upload bar filled more and more, throughout which Armand became more and more ill, sleeping most of the days and becoming increasingly delirious. On one of the days, a young male hospice nurse was in Armand's room with him, doing a regular checkup. While carrying out standard checkup protocol, Armand began making small, helpless puffs of air with his mouth. "Armand, everything okay?" the nurse said. Armand looked the nurse in the eyes. "Grandson." The nurse paused, realizing what was happening. "No, Armand, I'm the nurse. You don't have a grandson, remember?" "Oh." A pause filled the room. "Grandson," Armand continued to the nurse. "Don't live like me, okay? I spent my whole life avoiding death, but I have been dead for a long time. To live is to risk. What you do in response to that risk, is what separates the living from the dead. I see that now." In a huff, Armand returned to a delirious silence. A few moments later, these would become his last words. 4 days later, the upload bar on the computer screen completed. The Samsara software application screen opened, and an avatar of Armand appeared. It looked just like him, confused and somewhat scared, naive and desiring. This video was sponsored by Endl. With life constantly moving around us, time pushing us forward through it, and the endless longing to move on to the next or to be elsewhere, it can be both extremely difficult and extremely important to intentionally calm down and relax the mind. There are various things that can help do this, but many of which involve additional time, effort, inconsistency, or complete interference with your routine. The Soundscape app, Endl, provides a solution for better controlling your mental states that is both highly effective and integrates seamlessly into your regular routine. We all know the value of listening to music throughout the day to help focus, calm down, and so on. Endl recognizes this, how sound impacts well-being and mental states, and optimizes it by combining scientific understanding with cutting-edge technology to create personalized soundscapes that deliver consistent controlled effects that can help you relax, focus, and sleep. Endl uses patented AI technology backed by neuroscience studies that reacts and adapts to real-time inputs like time of day, the weather, your heart rate, location, and more. In doing so, it better allows you to synchronize with your circumstances, lifestyle, and circadian rhythm, ensuring that at all times and in all moods, what you listen to matches what you want to feel. If you're interested, you can sign up using the link in the description. The first 100 people to use the link will receive 1 free week of audio experiences. And of course, as always, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video.